So that's a divine version of the primacy of consciousness. What follows from Kant and Hegel and Marx and modern philosophy, contemporary philosophy, Kant and his heirs is constitute what Ayn Rand calls the social version of the primacy of consciousness. Namely, society as a whole creates reality. Society has certain concepts, society has certain mores, society has certain customs or beliefs, and this is the way it cognizes the world. So truth is social. The group is omnipotent, and the individual is basically steeped in his education, his socialization is steeped in its way of thinking, and basically is indoctrinated to society's way of looking at the world. Now, Kant's followers today, for example, the multiculturalists, are merely the social primacy of consciousness plus fragmentation. It's the idea that society is all-powerful, society is cognitively omniscient, but there are different societies view the world in different ways. So every society has its own truth, every ethnic group, every race has its own truth, its own right and wrong, even its own reality. There's, so for instance, to the communists, there's the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. It's not just in economic class war, it's in economic cognitive war. The bourgeoisie necessarily perceive the world in certain terms, certain ways. The proletariat necessarily see the world in certain ways by reason of being raised in economic class. The Nazis are a variation on this theme. There's race war. Each race, it's not just war between the races, but there's cognitive dissonance. They see the world in different ways. The master race perceives the world in a different way than the inferior races. What did the Nazis? Nazis had a great line. Logic is just a Jewish tool, they said, just a way by means of which the Jews and their followers, understand the world. But we, this master race, we just feel it in our blood and bowels. What a great line it is. We just experience our superiority in our viscera. As a matter of blood and bowels, we feel it. So there's different groups cognize the world differently. They understand it differently. There's no possible way to reconcile these clashing worldviews, and so a physical clash is inevitable. So each group's beliefs are true and right for it. And notice the contemporary multiculturalists, the idea is that you cannot judge, one culture. Every culture is different. Every culture has its own principles. Everybody's raised in a certain culture, as imbued with that culture's ideas. So it's impossible to judge a differing culture from within the one that you were raised. So it's impossible for a Westerner to understand or judge, non-Western culture. So for objectivists, for example, who believe that there's an objective standard of right and wrong, namely that which promotes life, for us to judge Western culture that is more beneficial to human life and consequently better than these blood-drenched tribal societies in the third world, that's what multiculturalists will look at as fascism. That's simply our attempt to impose our own subjective viewpoint on somebody who's different. Now, notice how this leads to conformity and how this leads directly to Keating. Because on the theory that reality is determined and controlled by the group, there are only three courses of action open to an individual. One may adhere to the tribe, one may defy the tribe, or one may seek to control the tribe. Now, those who do the first are conformists, those who seek to adhere to the tribe. Those who do the second are the nonconformists, those who defy the tribe. And those who do the third are the power seekers, those who seek to control the tribe or the group. Now, in The Fountainhead, Peter Keating is the foremost example of the first. Lois Cook is an arch example of the second, and we're going to get in a few minutes to Ellsworth Toohey, who's the leading example of the third. Now notice, if one accepts the social primacy of consciousness theory, if one accepts the idea that the group as a whole creates one's reality, what follows from that then is that reality is the group. Reality is society, and no independence is possible. All that remains are various types of second-handedness. All that remains are dependence with variations on a theme. Now, Peter Keating is the poor, pathetic second-hander who craves the tribe's approval, who believes, of course, there's no possibility of independent existence. The group or the society or the tribe sets the cognitive terms, sets the moral terms, sets all cultural terms, and all the mores and the customs are all set by society. Society is all powerful, and what he seeks, of course, is acceptance, recognition, status, prestige. These are the motives and the goals that animate Keating's life. So he gives up the two values of his life, painting and Catherine Halsey, in order to please his mother, to please Ellsworth Toohey, to please the taste of the public, in order to please other people, in order to please society. Now, notice what this means. The Fountainhead at its deepest level is about the question of survival. Notice what Roark says in his courtroom speech. There's only two ways to survive. You can survive by attempting to conquer nature, or you can seek survival by attempting to conquer those who conquer nature. This, of course, is a key. I think is the key meaning in the Fountainhead. And notice that a second-hander's metaphysics is social. His view of reality is social. Reality is society. It's not nature. It's not something independent of society. It's the group. Reality is the group. He therefore must seek survival socially. The conformist is the second-hander who seeks to survive by ingratiating himself with the crowd, by currying favor, by cultivating an attitude of malleable compliance, on the premise that if others like you, they will support you, they will encourage you, they will boost your career, they will push you forward, they will take care of you, in whether it's psychologically, financially, cognitively. They'll tell you what to believe, they'll assuage your anxieties, they'll have a welfare state to support you. You will receive cradle-to-grave maintenance in every way. Get your moral code, get your fundamental intellectual principles, get your job, your career, your survival, everything taken care of by the state or by society. You don't need competence, only the willingness to obey. Now, Peter Keating is the paradigm example of the belief it's not what you know that counts, it's who you know. The perfect example of one who seeks survival by, quote, playing the game. But notice that the game is only open to certain players. Howard Roark is excluded from the game, not by virtue of his ethnicity or skin color or gender or anything superficial like that. Howard Roark's excluded by virtue of his independence, his consistent adherence to facts, to nature, to independent reality, to what Ayn Rand calls the primacy of existence principle, to the idea that existence exists independently of any consciousness, and it's not dependent on God or society or any other consciousness. It just is. And truth is not created by society. Truth is not created by any consciousness. Truth is identified by consciousness, and consequently, Roark is very much on the idea that there are facts out here that have to be identified. This is the essence of his independence. It's him and reality. Not fundamentally, it's my mind and reality, my mind and nature, not my mind and the group. So to Roark, of course, truth is not identified by taking public opinion polls and finding out what other people believe. Truth is identified by looking at the facts of reality. Whereas to Keating, whose reality is social, you want to find out what's true, you take a public opinion poll. Look at facts. What are they? What matters is what society believes. Perception is reality. Image is everything. There's that great scene in, by the way, one of real good Hollywood movies in the last 10 years was based on this whole distinction. That is Wag the Dog. I mean, you might have seen it, which was a play, of course, on the Clinton administration, but at the deeper level, it was on this distinction, because The president's having an affair. I say this briefly. The president's having an affair with some like 15-year-old girl. Hard to imagine, but back when Clinton was president, not so hard. But they want to cover it up. They want to get it off the front pages. Just like Clinton bombed Saddam Hussein on the day when the impeachment hearings began. So he hires a spin doctor. In this case, the character was Robert De Niro in the movie. To get this off the front pages. So De Niro hires a Hollywood producer, in this case Dustin Hoffman, to create a war. Have these Albanian terrorists. They're never Islamic terrorists, but although half of Albania is Muslim. But be that as it may, the Albanians terrorists, who are poised to blow up American cities, and they film the footage, as a Hollywood producer, they film it as if it's real. They put it on TV. So all society sees it. And these CIA guys, I think they are, is this real or is this, is this fiction? And they asked De Niro at one point, the spin doctor, and they asked him, are there actually Albanian terrorists, ready to blow up American cities? And De Niro responds, well, the American people think so. Right? And the CIA, but are there really Albanian terrorists, ready to blow up American cities? And De Niro says, the American people think so. They see it on TV. They think so. They believe it. And you see the epistemological distinction here, very nicely drawn here. The one guy's on a primacy of existence. Are there, in fact, out there in the world, are there such terrorists ready to blow up American cities? And the other guy is on the social primacy of consciousness theory. Well, the American people think so. 100 million Americans can't be wrong, right? They've seen it on TV. It's got to be true. It's like impossible to conceive of some reality independent of what society believes. Now, if you understand that, that's the key distinction between Keating and Roark. Judy? Jenny?
But if you discount society's beliefs completely, then you completely destroy the idea of a democracy, which is the closest thing to a perfect government that has been created in reality today. How do you live in a democracy if that is based on the will of millions of people?
It's a good question. She said if you discount the will of the majority, then you basically dispense with democracy, which is the best form of government that's been created. So how do you dispense with people's beliefs and still live in a democracy? Well, fortunately, we don't live in a democracy. And democracy is a horrible form of government. And absolutely categorically repudiate democracy. Democracy means unlimited majority rule. Thank God the Founding Fathers did not set up a democracy. They set up a constitutional republic where you have a written constitution with a Bill of Rights guaranteeing certain inalienable rights to citizens regardless of what the majority wants, hopes, wishes, thinks, believes. So, you can hold ideas that clash with the majority. In fact, notice that a constitutional republic that as set up by the founders of the United States, notice that it's simply the political implementation of a primacy of existence principle, namely that you have ideas that clash with the mainstream, you clash with the consensus, you clash with the majority, and hopefully those ideas are not derived from just your feelings. Hopefully those ideas are derived from reality. It makes possible. It protects the rights of the independent thinker. It protects the rights of the Roark types. To think independently, to come up with new ideas, to clash with the majority, to go against the consensus, like on global warming today, right? The rights of rational scientists to speak out against the so-called consensus on man-made global warming is part of the constitutional republic that's established by the Founding Fathers. So, but the key point is not, and by the way, I think what the Fountainhead points out, stresses, is that it's the people who clash with the consensus who are the most life-giving people. Right? They're the ones who come up with new ideas. The consensus has its traditional ways of looking at things. But the Socrates, the Copernicuses, the Galileos, the Pasteurs, I would argue the Ayn Rands, these are the people who come up with new ideas.